Basically, my name is Idowu Anthony-Ajileye. I've got just one wife. I say that because some do tell me one wife is inadequate, and some will tell you one wife is over-adequate. But for me, just one wife is enough, yeah? I've got a daughter, Esther, she's 12, and I've got a son, Enoch, he's 9. As mentioned earlier, I'm a civil engineering project manager, and something else I do public speaking. There are 5 parts of me that I talk about when it comes to public speaking. One of my parts is the career aspect, which I'm going to be speaking to you today. The other part is leadership. The other part is entrepreneurship. The other part is family values. And the final part is human rights. So today I'm speaking to you because we're on the team Accelerate. My topic, as mentioned earlier, is think out of the box and pay the price. Going on from there, I moved to the UK in 2004. When I came into the country, my first point of call was with a friend in London before I sorted out my personal accommodation. And when I opened up my box, and I was taking out my suits to move them to the wardrobe and all that, my friend and the cousin, they were just laughing. They were laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing. And I was wondering, what exactly is funny? What's amusing them? I was just wondering. But I later got to know that why they were laughing basically was, they were thinking, where are you going to wear these suits to? Where? You're an immigrant, you're bringing in suits. No. That tells me straight away, that is their mindset. I was a bit baffled about that because I was expecting a higher level of expectations from people that have been living in the country for such a long time. Then I picked up the phone and I spoke to another colleague of mine. And I said, this is what happened. Why are things like that? Well, I believe from my own experience working overseas, those at the top of the hierarchy, they do the less work. It's all about strategy, drinking tea, reading newspapers. So if that is the case, then the guy said to me, if that's the second guy I called, he said, if you want money, to be honest with you, you got to go for jobs where you work long hours. I said, no, that seems to be totally different from my mindset before I came here. I don't expect to do long hours before I can make money. But why have I told you this story? That takes you to my very first point, that you need to deal with your mindset. It's so important. You may be an immigrant like myself. You may be somebody going to the job market for the very first time. You may be a woman going to a sector that is not familiar with women. You need to deal with your mindset. And you must be ready to discard any information, any guide that does not align with your goals. You know exactly what you want. Any voices whatsoever that does not align with your goals, make sure you discard it. So moving on from there, in a system where you've worked overseas, and as you know in the United Kingdom, it's all about work experience, have you worked in the UK, and all the stuff like that. I moved from there to start to think of how do you now break into the work market. Then it suddenly occurred to me that going beyond the first degrees, which is quite good, going beyond the masters, which is quite good, in the long term, in the short term, they may not get you through the door quickly in the short term. Then I started to think about it. What is the way out in this situation? And that takes me to the second point I want to discuss with you, which has to do with what we call bridging courses. Bridging courses can come in 2 perspectives. One, you may have studied maybe medicine or pharmacy or whatsoever from any country whatsoever. The first thing you have to think about is, what exactly can I do to make that overseas degree relevant within this particular system? A lot of people have come into the country, and the next thing they've done, they've discarded 10 years and 12 years of study of the discipline they are passionate about because they can't get themselves into what they actually want to do. And the other part of bridging courses is, as I said, going beyond the degrees, going beyond the masters, they are sort of a short circuit to get you an employment. And at the time I came in, because I've come from a construction and engineering background, health and safety was so much in the hype at that particular time. There were a lot of incidences left and right, and they wanted health and safety experts, particularly in the construction industry. Then looking through the internet, I discovered, well, there seems to be a wonderful course here. It doesn't take so many weeks and months, whatever, but it's a bridging gap to get me into the sector. Then, as they would say, then what I would find, it's level. So what I did was I looked up the internet, and when I saw the cost of the course, it was quite expensive. I said, well, for a family person, how would I deal with this amount of money at this point in time that I don't want to part with so much money of that nature? So I just left that. Then a particular day, I walked into one of the major departmental stores, and I saw a guy with the eye with the boots, with the safety hat. Invariably, they were doing a sort of renovation work in that store, in some sections of the store. And I spoke to the guy. I said, well, I've also got engineering background. I have experience in construction. I'm trying to break through into that particular sector. And I said something that, based on my own research, what I think I could do is this and this. But when I looked up on the internet, it was quite expensive for me to do that bridging course and all that. He said to me, I will give you a particular name. It's a company in West London. As long as you're hardworking and you're not lazy, they will allow you do this online. Sort of, they will send you materials. You will study yourself and just go and sit the examination. And he said, not just that alone, because you've told me about money. The good thing about them is you can pay 7 installments without any interest at all to get that course done. And that was how I got myself enrolled on that particular course. It's just, if you feel you've studied enough, you go for the exams. You don't have to wait for weeks and months and years. You decide your examination date once you're sure you've studied enough of the study materials. So I did that, and that was good. And I had that particular qualification in the kitty. What is my third point in terms of what I'm discussing with you today? My third point has to do with you have to try to align with professional bodies and network. Align with professional bodies and network. I know it might be quite expensive for some bodies. They will charge you annual fees and all that. But the good thing is for people at the student level or at the graduate level, they tend to have discounted rates for them in terms of their level of membership. And there are so many out there. In the early days, I joined up with ICE, Institute of Civil Engineers. I joined up with CIOB, Chartered Institute of Building. I joined up with IOSH. And later on, when I started more involved in my career path, I joined up with APS, which is Association for Project Safety. And later I joined up with APM, which is Association for Project Management. But why am I saying this? Because I've seen a lot of students, graduates, go attend a lot of events of these professional bodies. You are not joining them basically to add titles to your name. It isn't. What you are trying to do is basically getting yourself to the events they organize so you can meet one-on-one with decision makers. A lot of us jump on the internet and apply for roles, HR, this and that. But if you have the opportunity to sort of engage decision makers, it is a quicker way to get to where you want to get to. And for those that are familiar with the way it works in organizations, any vacancy, any whatever starts from the person that needs that particular position telling HR, I want this position to be filled. So what I'm saying is that by going to such events, you engage with people, you tell them what you can do, and gives you an opportunity. Somebody could tell you straight away, see me on Monday. And that is it. It may be a full-time role. It may be, they can say, come and do 1 day a week. While you're working with a smaller company, they might call you in and say, just do 1 day a week. And that will trigger you to where exactly you want to be. That takes me to my next point is, you must keep your focus. You must keep your focus. When I say keep your focus, what I'm trying to say basically is, in as much as you're trying to get yourself on the ladder of the career path you want, don't be distracted. Somebody may come along and say, well, okay, my name is Anthony, for example. Don't just sit down and we are waiting for the perfect employment or this or that. You could take up things to keep yourself going, but don't ever lose your focus of your passion, of your goals, of the course you actually want to do. Don't lose focus of it at all. That is, if you know you're in this particular field, this is the sector I'm looking at, this is my aspirations, keep it. Even wherever you're working, don't lose sight of it. A lot of people have taken up maybe something, one sort of jobs to keep themselves going, and they've totally lost touch with exactly where they want to be. And for the rest of their lives, they never get back to it. Some have spent 8 years, 10 years studying a particular field, and they don't go back to it ever because in the course of trying to keep themselves together, I've picked up a PA job or I picked up whatever retail job, and they keep doing it. So what I'm trying to say is keep the focus. Don't ever divert away from what you feel and you know is meant for you, what you want to do, what you've spent time studying and committing yourself into. That takes to the 5th point. And my 5th point in terms of what I'm speaking to you today has to do with that never give up. Don't ever give up. When I say don't ever give up, what I mean is this. When I started the journey, after so many interviews, left and right, interviews there, they will tell you, wonderful interview, unfortunately, I regret to, you know what I'm trying to say, they will send you so many of such letters. It's going to come through the door. You're going to see so many of such letters come through the door. So what happened basically is, I did a lot of that, so I will spare you all the long stories, yeah? But there was a particular one they called me into in the east of London. It was a major civil engineering demolition contractor. And when I got there, because I've done so many, you see, the more interviews you do, the better you are at answering questions. You see, so because I've done so many, I was determined at this one, because I know virtually everything, they will be asking at typical interviews. So I'm ready for whatever questions they're going to ask me. After drilling me for close to 90 minutes, and I was so happy, I was giving it back, giving the answers back. You know, there's a way you get excited that I think I've done a good job here today. If actually they want to fill this position, they will give it to you. You know what I'm saying? After they finished the interview for like 90 minutes, the next thing I happened, they said, well, what are they going to do now? They're going to take me down to a demolition site, which was down the road. That let's go down to the demolition site. We can ask you some more technical questions in terms of our activities as a company. And I followed them down. As part of the interview process, we went down again for another 60, 90 minutes. They'll take me to this excavator, take me to this driller, different things, asking questions, all sorts of questions. And I was answering the questions. Then when we finished, the guy said, I'm not going to waste your time telling you we'll give you a feedback in a week or in 2 weeks. I can tell you straight away, we're not going to give you the job. And I said, why? Well, just give me a feedback. What's the feedback from this particular interview and exercise? And he said to me, we're not giving you the job basically because you know too much. Honestly, I've never heard of that before. That a company will tell you that we are not going to give you the job because you know too much. That was the lowest ebb in the entire process. I got home, I was devastated. I told my wife, what else can I do? For the first time, they would tell me that you've done so well, but you know too much, we're not going to give it to you. But subsequently, going on from there, I find my way into those things I wanted to do. And from there, I've moved on. I've worked in the building sector. I've worked in the manufacturing sector. I've worked in power sector. I've worked in Class 6 surface rail sector. I've worked in engineering, high-speed trains. I've done all several bits and pieces in my particular profession. Yeah? And for some of the companies you might know, companies like UK Power Networks, Carillion, Uhanda, TfL Surface Transport, London Underground, and a couple of so many other smaller ones you might not know. But all I've done so far is just to basically focus on the journey that gets you into the door. Because another topic for some other time is basically, once you get into the door, it's another ball game entirely. It's another ballgame entirely, because you could get into the door and you could be stuck at a particular level. And that is a bit of the focus of the other parts of me which I speak on in so many other places. Take, for example, leadership. You will not move up the ladder in any organization if you lack leadership skills. You wouldn't. You must know how to manage people. You must know how to deal with people. Within organizations, there is nothing like one cap fits all. Different people with different characteristics. Some got no focus, and some do. So what I'm trying to say is that that's another phase entirely, which I'm not going to focus on today. Then something else, again, is along your career journey also, is what I speak on that I said earlier, which is family values. If it is your lifestyle, you cannot plan career goals without planning family goals. They go together. Because if you are not at peace at home, you cannot concentrate at work. So that is another thing entirely, which is for another day. Something else, again, which I mentioned to you earlier, has to do with human rights, which I speak on. I speak on human rights basically because it's my way of giving back. And going beyond you making money for yourself or building a career for yourself, you just can't be thinking of yourself and yourself and yourself alone. So anything whatsoever you could do such that you can give back to the society, please do. It does help and goes a long way to bring it to the limelight. I do training and I do public speaking for Amnesty International. I do for UNICEF. And going beyond that, I mentor in a few organizations. I do mentoring for Mosaic. I do for Kent Foundation for Young Entrepreneurs. And something else, again, has to do with entrepreneurship. It's something else I also speak on. Because as you go along your career journey, you need to decide, am I working to pension and closing out in this world, if that's your goal? And if you feel it's not the ideal thing for you to spend the rest of your life on a fixed income, you have to start to think of entrepreneurship. What exactly have I got passion about? What do I find so easy to do? Because to be honest with you, any income, as long as it is fixed, it's no income, no matter how big it is. So you have to start to think about that also along your career journey. And a lot of times, it doesn't cost millions or billions to become an entrepreneur. Basic things can move you to high levels. As long as you're passionate about it, you know it is for you, you give it a go, and you continue to pursue it. So finally, as I close, all I want to say to you is that keep the focus. I've given you the 5 critical points that can help you in the journey. Part 1, I've spoken to you about the mindset. I've spoken to you about the bridging courses. I've spoken to you also about aligning with professional organization and networking. I've also spoken to you about keeping the focus. And finally, I've spoken to you that you should never, never give up. And my final message to you this afternoon is this. Whatsoever is attainable, it is achievable. And to you, wonderful audience of Imperial College, thank you for listening.